Welcome to Digital Works Television, and we have a special guest today, Chuck Karr, the president of UAH, University of Alabama in Huntsville. And I want to go through some of your bio. I know you don't like, it's Dr. Chuck Karr, by the way, Dr. Chuck Karr. You don't really like to be talked about, but among other things, you have 3 degrees from Alabama, including a PhD in engineering mechanics. You worked in industry for a little bit, the Bureau of Mines, is that correct?
Yes, federal government.
Federal government, okay. And then you came back to Alabama, and for 16 years, you were the dean of the UA's College of Engineering, and phenomenal growth. More students, more money, more everything. And you got ready to retire and got talked into going to UAH, and you've been at UAH since 2021. Am I correct? That's all right.
Yeah, that was reasonably close, right? So I will correct one thing. I didn't get ready to retire. I actually did retire.
Oh, okay, so you did
and
retire. You were building a house at the beach, as best I remember.
Correct, and I got 2 good days of retirement in. They asked me to come up here, right? Okay. And a lot of people say, well, 2 days isn't much, and my wife said it was 2 days too many.
Well, your wife would be out in the audience right now going, okay, when I was checking out your bio, I saw something and I thought we ought to talk about this. You did research on the applications of genetic algorithms and fuzzy logic. And, you know, as I told you when we were chatting, I actually, fuzzy logic, I figured out reading a couple of things, had to have an engineer explain genetic algorithms to me, but I feel like that I understand it. Are there 2 sentences that describe what your research was in? Can you do it that quickly?
So it was the early throes of artificial intelligence, right?
Okay.
Actually, it was using schemes that occur in nature that allow for organisms to improve their lot in life and trying to apply them to solve engineering problems.
Okay. So that kind of is what your career is, isn't it? Solving engineering problems. It's and that ranges from actually doing research to getting students to major in engineering to become engineers. Is that what your career has been?
Yeah, so my career, basically my life, has been about the education and development of young people, right? I just get a great pleasure out of seeing young people succeed, pushing beyond what they think they're capable of. Now, the truth of the matter is, for the last 3.5 years, I've been a president, so I don't actually do anything, right? But there are a lot of people that do stuff around me.
Well, I've seen you speak a lot.
Yeah, a lot, I guess. But it's really about motivating people, trying to get them to accomplish some things, helping them understand that, yeah, they can achieve those things that they can dream about. And so it's really gratifying, right? I mean, you know, when you see young people who've had you as a teacher or dean or as a president, and they go out and they're successful and they come back and they want to thank you for pushing them over the hill a little bit, it's really gratifying.
Okay, so you do, though, am I correct, talk to students and says, Dr. Karr, I just don't know if I'm good enough at math to be an engineer, or if my mind works that way. Do you spend some time, even now, persuading students that, son or daughter, you might ought to be an engineer?
So 100%, right? You know, I try to tell young people, look, so what you see when you see an engineer is you see that person that's already run the gauntlet. They're successful, right? They've achieved their degree, they've gone on, they've started accomplishing things, and they serve as a mentor. What you don't see is they were probably in the Thank God I Made It club, right? They sat in that class and said, please God, let me make a C and I'll never use this again, right? So lots of people struggle through things, but they don't always see the struggle that people had to go through to be the successes that they are. And so, you know, sometimes they feel a sense of failure.
Yeah.
You know, I had a young person one time I had recruited, and I said, oh, how's engineering going? Well, I got out of engineering. I said, well, Dad, come, why'd you get out of engineering? First calculus test. I said, well, what'd you make? She said, I made a 67. I said, you made double digits, I made a 9, right? Just stay with it, it'll be okay, right? So that's part of it, right? It's really about coaching people and trying to help them understand that, you know, lots of people struggle with various things, but it's really about that bottom line goal you have, right? So people I talk to, especially over at UAH, you know, they want to be part of the mission that goes to Mars. And I tell them, well, look, if you want to do that, you got to do some of these other things, right? You got to pass the calculus class. You got to do the math. So just knuckle under and do it, right? Because you're going to go to do bigger things than just get a college degree.
Oh, it's funny. I was talking about some, and I was talking to a teacher, and I said, "Yeah, I thought." He said, "Yeah, he's in my class." And I said, "He's going to be an engineer. Engineer, isn't he?" And he said, "I heard he was changing to the ministry." And I said, "No," I said, "He said he was going to be an engineer." He says, "Oh, I'm sorry. That's the same thing, isn't it?" so I mean, that's kind of how you look at it. An engineer. I mean, if you think about in the high-tech world. Is there very much, and there's physics and all that, but is there very much that isn't based on the work of an engineer?
No. I mean, so many things, especially in our society today, are so high tech, and there's so many things that we just take for granted that have such great engineering feats in them. And really at the core, I try to tell people that if you come into engineering, we're going to teach you one skill and one skill only: problem solving.
Okay.
But it's a pretty good skill to have, right?
Yeah.
I mean. If I go to a doctor, I need a problem solver, right? If, forbid, I should need to call an attorney, I need a problem solver. Crud, if somebody's yelling spill on aisle 3, I need a problem solver, right? So the structured way of solving problems is really what we teach in engineering.
Okay.
And it's kind of, it spans a lot of areas, right? I mean, we have people that get engineering degrees that go on to become doctors, they go on to become lawyers, they do a lot of different things. I think it's true that still the #1 undergraduate degree of CEOs in the United States is engineering.
Okay, and the state of engineering education, I've been hearing, and it's not hard to find it on a site somewhere, there is a huge demand for engineers. There are not enough engineering graduates to answer that demand. And if we don't answer that demand, we're in trouble down there.
Yeah.
Is that true?
No, that is true, right? And so over here at UAH, I mean, my goodness, I have people coming to me every day talking to me about workforce. We need more engineers, we need more engineers. And that's not just in Huntsville, right? It's across the nation. And I'm not sure, we try to track it back to, because it's our feedstock, right, is where is it that young people make the decisions that prevent them from doing engineering? A lot of people say, well, you need to go work on those high schools. High school's too late, right? A lot of times it happens in that 8th grade area where young people are making that decision to where I'm going to take some challenging math classes or I'm not going to take challenging math classes. And it especially hits on female students because at that time, young women are really, they want to be accepted in everything, and that's not the cool group always. But once you finish that degree and you go out and you earn the kind of living you can earn in engineering, you are the cool group.
And at the same time, am I correct? There are more women graduating from college now than men.
Yeah, but not
in engineering.
Engineering is still problematic for us, and that's a fundamental failure of us as a profession, because the medical profession's got it figured out, right? There are a lot of young ladies that go in to become doctors, but we still haven't figured out how to address that in engineering.
Recently, I emceed an event to honor Teachers of the Year in the Madison County 3 school systems. And I talked to a young woman who teaches engineering at a middle school in Huntsville. I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, let me tell you something. K through 12 is so different than when I went there. Okay, when I was there, it was like sit down, shut up,
Think about when I was there.
Well, I'm not touching that one, Steve. But now schools are so different, right? And I mean, look, you see that just in our Huntsville community. I mean, doggone, this cybersecurity school we've got, only one in the nation. And the kinds of things and the opportunities they afford these young people. To me, all of those activities they do is really about this. You've got to have the young person's attention to have them learn something, right? So many of the things you can teach it in the context of cybersecurity or robotics or all these different things, right? Okay.
So if you were going to quantify or classify the need, is it critical at this point? Are we in trouble with getting enough people who have engineering type skills?
If we're not at the critical point now, we soon will be. One of the things that a lot of people are worried about in higher education is what we call the cliff that's coming. There's pretty quickly we're going to be to a point where the number of high school graduates is going to decrease dramatically. And that just goes back to the lack of parents having children at that time. And if you cut that down and we don't increase the number of young people who are going to be studying math, science, engineering, then we are going to face some real challenges.
Okay, so if anybody asked Chuck Karr, and I bet people have, what would you say? What would you say we need to do? What needs to be done? If you were going to say, Steve, this is number one. This is number one on the list of things we need to do to help get more engineers out there.
So I think you have to go back. You can't address that issue in college. You can't really address it in high school. I think you have to go back to middle school and help young people understand the kind of impact that they can have being an engineer. Right, a lot of people view this engineer as, you know, like watching the movie Revenge of the Nerds in 3D, where you're sitting at a desk and you're not doing anything. No, you go out and you can have a huge impact. I mean, right across the street over here, there are hundreds of engineering jobs that are about the defense of a nation. There's a group over here, you know, over at NASA that's working on putting a man on Mars. I mean, the kind of impact you can have, all of the major problems that young people are really interested in today, whether it's climate change or whatever, is going to involve people who have engineering degrees. So I think the number one thing you want to do is you want to try to help young people understand the kind of impact you can have as an engineer. You know, I think the other thing that, several other things you have to do is you have to make sure they get the math and science skills. I mean, but if they don't have them when they come to college, it's a real challenge. And it's basically a challenge because our curricula all start at Calculus 1. So if a young person is far removed from taking Calculus 1, they don't want to have to come in and spend a year or two to try to get to the point where they can go into the degree program. So anything young people can do to be prepared for mathematics. Look, you don't have to like the mathematics, but you got to get through the mathematics.
Listen, my dad was an engineer, and it bothered him, I think, his entire life that I was so bad at mathematics. And my brother wasn't, but I was. I can't explain that. Okay, so DigitalWorks, we're interested in and promoting model-based systems engineering. And I know you know about that because the DoD is certainly encouraging it. It's like something that they want everybody to get on board with. So, because it's
so
it's
encouraging.
The newest. Encouraging.
Let's talk about it a different way, right?
Okay, all right.
So encouraging might be a term you would use for all of the engineering directors out on the arsenal who are in my office every other day telling me that I need to do more in digital engineering.
Yeah.
You know, it's a huge thing. One of the things that that is so prominent about it is it provides us a mechanism for dealing with really, really complicated systems. Okay, and if you look at systems today, they are complex. Just look at your automobile, for instance, right? When I was growing up, I had a Ford F100 pickup truck. Not an F-150, F100. We hadn't got to the 150.
It was small, right?
I could literally crawl up into the engine bay and fix everything on that vehicle with a ball peen hammer and a crescent wrench. Try doing that on your car today. I walk out here to my automobile, it's like a computer, right? Go look at it.
It's not like a computer.
It is.
It is a computer.
Well, you're exactly right. And if you go to one of the manufacturing facilities like Mazda Toyota over here, you know, you just look at the complexity associated with that vehicle. There's no way you can keep track of all of the things that go on in that vehicle with the old snubby-nosed pencil and a piece of paper, right? It's all digitized and it's all model-based. And it affords us the opportunity to have tremendous innovation in the complex systems that we're working with. So, you know, all young people that are interested in engineering need to start thinking about model-based system stuff, right? Digital engineering.
Okay, one of the things that we're promoting is that we've developed curriculums for Calhoun and Wallace State and other community colleges to train modelers. Where math, that calculus that I would certainly be afraid of, and certain students would be, they could start out and being computer savvy is the big skill they've got to have. And yet they can also take math classes while they're learning to be a modeler. And many of them do go on to go after an engineering degree. So I would think, as an engineer, anything that gets you in the door would excite you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things that people have to understand, and I tell young people this all the time, and they think it's kind of unusual coming from a university president, college is not an end. College is a means to an end, right? I try to talk to young people about, you know, think about what it is you want to do. right? And some young people get that messed up. I asked a young person one time, I said, what do you want to do? She said, chemical engineering. What do they do? And I'm like, whoa. We kind of got this thing backwards here, right? Tell me what you want to do, then we'll tell you what you need to study, right? And so, you know, I try to tell young people, you're going to do more than just get a college degree.
Yeah.
You're going to do more than just get a certification to allow you to model. You know, you're going to be one of the groups that puts a man on Mars, for crying out loud, right? You're going to be one of the people who help us come up with a sustainable energy source.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to solve big problems. I try to get young people to drive toward things they're passionate about. One of the things about engineering is young people recognize you can earn a good living doing that. But I try to tell people this: passion trumps money every day of the week. If you're working for money, and I'm working out of passion, when you're crying to stop, I'll be crying to keep going. So try to find those things you're passionate about, kind of keep focused on those larger issues that you're going to work on, and then you got to get through all these things along the way in order to be able to do those things.
Yeah, and am I correct that in any hard curriculum, as engineering might be if you're not good at math, there is ample help out there. Ample, and that would be everywhere. Am I correct? It's like there are people. Everything from being a model-based systems engineering modeler to being, what is it? You have a PhD in engineering mechanics. There's somebody who not only willing but wants to help you.
So I used to have students tell me, you know, I was dean of engineering, they'd say, well, yeah, that's a weed out class. And I go, whoa. I said, look, you need to understand this. I worked really hard to recruit you here. I'm not really interested in weeding you out, right? I'm interested in helping you get over the bar. One of the things that we try to talk to faculty members about is this, right? Their job, if you think about a high jump competition, right? Their job is not the judge of the high jump competition. You made it over the bar, you didn't make it over the bar. Their role is the coach of the high jumper. They're supposed to be helping the jumper get over the bar. One of the things that happens to young people, there is abundant help out there, but too many of them wait too late, right? You know, I tell them, don't wait till you're popping rivets off this sucker, man. As soon as you see a little bit of crack somewhere, come in and get help. We're interested and anxious in trying to help young people be successful. We've got no interest in trying to fail kids out. That's not a challenge at all. I mean, I can guarantee you I can ask you a question you can't answer, right? What's the fun in that, right? So they do want to be proactive about that. But I'd like to touch on one other thing that you mentioned. I would say that engineering is a demanding curriculum. A lot of people go, oh my God, that's so hard. Well, whoa, hang on now. A lot of that is a function of what you have an affinity for, right? I'm going to tell you right off, if you put me in an art curriculum or a communication curriculum, I would fail fabulously. I couldn't do it. I can't do that, right? So young people who have kind of a knack for engineering, it's not that hard, right? Now, there are young people that struggle a little bit, and certainly they struggle with aspects of it, but I would like to hope that they struggle some, because what I tell young people is, hey, look, if in an engineering curriculum, if you didn't get challenged, we didn't do our job. And I certainly hope that when I drive across this bridge over the interstate going back to the office this afternoon, that engineer was challenged, right?
Because our lives, there's nothing we're going to do today that hasn't involved an engineer, if it's nothing more than getting in your car.
And your safety, right?
So, and even if you major in engineering or take engineering courses and decide to do something else, as you said earlier, you've learned thinking skills, you've learned looking at something as a system of things working together. You've learned something that will impact your life and your family's life.
So that logical thought really changed my life, right? I mean, you know, I worked as an engineer for several years, and then I got into education, and then I got into administration. I guess I'm a perfect example of those who can do, those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach administrate, right? So I'm peaking out on that front. But, you know, every day I use logical thought, and I go back to principles that I learned in that core of engineering. You know, I tell young people, right, so we teach you one fundamental skill, how to problem solve. You know, electrical engineers learn that fundamental skill in the area of radar and magnetics, and aerospace learn it in the realm of rockets and engines, and mechanicals learn it in automobiles. But at the end of the day, we're going to teach you one fundamental skill: problem solving. But gosh, what a tremendously valuable skill.
Okay, you're not supposed to ask questions you don't already know the answer to, but have you seen the movie The Martian?
I have, yes.
Okay.
Kind of freaked me out.
But that is a perfect example of problem solving, using skills learned the kind of skills you're talking about to problem solve until you solve all the problems.
Well, so, you know, you probably have to be comfortable addressing a younger audience, but I'm going to go a little bit further back. I tell people all the time the best example I know of engineering appears in the movie Apollo 13.
Yeah.
When he walks in with that sack of stuff and he says, we got to make this out of this, and he dumps it on the table.
And
right?
both of those movies have the same thing in common, that human beings figuring it out.
And not anywhere in there do you see somebody break out a calculator and start trying to solve a calculus problem, right?
No.
Right?
No.
But yeah, it really is. It's about solving exciting problems, solving important problems, staying with it, having logical thought. But you know, engineering is changing today. It's certainly not this isolated thing. It's being able to work in a team. You know, one of the things that they like to talk about in education today is what they call soft skills. And what they mean by that is the ability to speak, the ability to write, the ability to communicate. And we try to tell people those aren't soft skills, those are critical skills, right?
If you can't write a report.
It makes no difference, right? And so, you know, we try to talk to young people in an academic education about not just the classes they take, but the experiences they have. And sometimes those things occur in a classroom, and other times it occurs when you're the president of the robotics team or secretary in a fraternity or sorority, right? I mean, have experiences that are going to set you apart and help your value proposition when you get out.
Okay. Teaching students this is why you're at UAH, right? It's why you didn't retire?
I guess.
That's your wife, I'm sure, is asking you, why didn't you retire?
No, I didn't retire because my wife said Huntsville will be good. Let's go there, right? I mean, you know, sometimes.
But it's why you're still in it.
Well,
right?
sometimes being president's a lot like being married. If you just do what you're told, things seem to go
all right.
better.
So before we quit, now are we going to talk about applications of genetic algorithms and fuzzy logic? No, we're not going to.
We can. I mean, so I'll tell you what that basically was about, right?
Well, you said it was about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, but it's about getting a computer to kind of solve problems the way humans do, right? Because when we solve problems, we use abstract concepts, right? Like small, right? You can say something small.
Okay.
Well, typically a computer has to have it. Well, what do you mean by small? Well, I don't know, less than 2, right? Between 0 and 2. Well, that's not the way I use it when I'm driving, right? Like if that gap gets to be small, it may not be between 0 and 2, right? I mean, it's
0 and 6 inches.
It's a little bit fuzzy, right? It's a little bit fuzzy, a little bit soft.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir, so much for being with us, and I hope you'll come back.
Well,
and I'll think of, well, we won't. Well, I promise I won't ask you about that genetic algorithm.
Well,
I just find that the name of it is just intriguing.
No,
to me.
exactly. So y'all are doing really important things here, right? Having young people looking toward their future, trying to go out and address challenging things, right? And sometimes young people today, they've been through and they haven't necessarily been challenged, right? As soon as something gets a little bit tough, they kind of back off of it, right? Well, we got to get people past that. Almost everything that I have that's of value to me, I had to work like the Dickens to get, right? And so asking young people to go out and do big things is important. It's important for the individual young person, it's important for our society, and they have to understand that to do big things, there are going to be challenges, right? But my goodness, how how satisfying it is when you're able to do some of those things. So thank you for having me. I appreciate all the work y'all do.
And we're all about helping students get an opportunity.
No, exactly right. I mean, look, so I really didn't wake up this morning going, how can I shaft a couple of those kids at UAH, right? I mean, I actually woke up, hey, I got a couple of young people that I think we can help through this, right? So, you were right on point earlier. There are people that want to help you. That's why we get in this business, right?
All right, Dr. Chuck Karr, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you for being with us on Digital Works Television, and remember, it works.